That is incredible. If you're a member of an orchestra, you can claim back an extra 2,500.
Yeah, it's an extra tax credit that you get, and I would suspect that it's probably because of traveling to shows that they have to do, as well as that they might have time that they're not being paid for where they have to practice pieces or something. Right. I'm not sure why it is, but that's a really juicy one. So for all
instruments are pretty expensive as well, though, and probably up the upkeep.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, you know, you don't have to be buying a Stradivarius to blow the budget on an instrument like saxophones, any of these kind of things. They are big money, but I think again, it varies from job to job. Like some of them would be not so great, like waiters. You know, it's about €90 a year for them. It would really be about buying uniforms or extra clothes. Nurses have them, teachers have them, but a lot of people have these special credits and they don't even realize it, and because of that they go unclaimed, and there's literally hundreds of millions of tax every year that could be gotten back that people don't get, and revenue are happy to pay it. Like,
I know they're happy to pay it, but they're not happy to make you aware that you're entitled to it.
You see, revenue kind of have a view that they're not going to force you to know what you can claim back, the same as they're not going to force you to know what you have to pay. But if you don't pay what you have to, you're in trouble. And if you don't claim back what you should have, well, then you're just, it's your own problem.
You see, I have a problem. You know, they'll ring you and say you owe us tax, but they won't ring you and say we actually owe you money.
Yeah, well, okay, that's a huge problem. It's not for them. You know?
Is it every job, could literally every profession get some money back, or?
Not every single profession. So, you know, there's jobs that aren't on the list, and there is a list of the tax exemptions listed on revenue.ie. It's very easy to find, but the thing that we find, certainly with dealing with clients, is that a lot who are on the list don't even know about it. And that's really something important, because you can go back 4 years and claim. So if you haven't claimed back, you know, costs for education, for bin charges, for medical expenses, you can go back 4 years and actually claim it all in one big go, and it can turn into a big lump sum payment.
So if you're watching us today and you're a member of an orchestra, there's 10 grand waiting on you that you haven't claimed.
Possibly, yeah. I'm pretty sure. I'd say that the people in orchestras, I'm pretty sure that they know.
I'm sure they're aware of it.
You know, I had some double entendre joke there about don't go blowing that horn, but it was probably best saved for some other day.
Another great tax exemption is pensions, and they have bounced back.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest tax break of all. But like when you talk about pensions, I would say it's almost like kryptonite to being seen as an interesting person. You talk about pensions, people just shut down.
Well, I have completely shut down already, so I'll let you continue on.
That's just me. I have that effect on women. With pensions, the thing about them is, like, SSIA's had a deal where you put in, this is going back a while, you put in €5, you got an extra euro. Like, pensions are even better, because if you're paying at the top rate of tax, you can put in about €60 and get €100. And the thing about it is, you can't access it. There's certain conditions where you can access it a bit earlier. But in general, what's happening is you're deferring tax until much further down the line. And so you put away money, tax-free, the growth is tax-free, and ideally it will turn into something bigger. Now, people have a very dim view of them. 64% of people either don't think pensions are good value, or even know that there's tax breaks associated with them. And I was looking at other research from Standard Life, and they showed that in people aged 22 to 40, if they got €1,000, pretty much none of them would think about saving it or putting it aside for another day. They just blow it. So we're predisposed towards having a dim view of pensions, but we all want this nice retirement. Well, when you get to retirement, your average person at the moment is going to have about $4,000 a year. Now, you'll have the state pension of about $12,000 if that lasts, which will bring you to about $16,000 with your own provisions added on. And that will be less than half of the industrial wage at the moment. Now, can you live for less than half what you make at the moment? Well, you might not have kids at that, well, you'll have children, but they won't be reliant on you financially. Hopefully you don't have a mortgage at that stage. But the real question is, people see this thing of, I want to retire and, you know, live the glitzy life, but they don't want to fund for it. So it's important to realize you've got to get started early and appropriately.
And when you say early,
to make it happen.
In your 20s?
Sadly, yes. Yeah,
From 25, is it?
It's too late for all of us. If you haven't started yet, it's too late. Like many things, like, you know, my budding music career or acting or any of these things, you know, I'm past the post already. Ideally, you start in your 20s now. It doesn't mean that you can't play catch up. And it doesn't mean that there's not other things you can do. And certainly being debt-free, or if people have a property that they bought which they felt was their pension, if you can get that debt-free, it can be a pension of sorts. But you're not getting the tax relief the way you do on a standard one. And that's the important thing to realize. It's really the tax relief and the general upward move of markets over time is what gives pensions their big value.
You know, you can buy years if you're in a job. Do you get tax relief on that?
You do. Basically, any time that you're adding into a pension, be it what's known as an AVC, an additional voluntary contribution, a regular pension, if your job doesn't have enough with their scheme to give you full entitlements, you can do your own separate thing, then yeah, you will get it. Now, there's limits on how much of your income you can put towards it. Very few people ever use that, so I don't think it's a massive concern. But the main thing to focus on is very simple. You've got to put something aside to have it at the other end. If you don't, you won't have it. Like a squirrel knows going into the winter they've got to put nuts aside. People, on the other hand, don't do the same thing, and I don't know why that is. A huge amount of people out there have no pension provision other than whatever the state might provide. But here's the rub. You're going to work for longer. You're going to work for more years for less money. So unless you figure, yeah, I'm happy to work until I'm almost about 70, to get far less than people today are getting, and you're delighted with that prospect, then you've got to do something.
And Revenue are delighted if you make contributions to your pension.
Yeah, I suppose, like you've said a few times, like Revenue are happy, or I don't think that they're they don't care. They just realize you get a thing called an RAC number, a retirement account certificate, and if you put money into the pension, then it reduces your tax. The general thing is that older people can be quite a drag on an economy, not because they want to, but simply because they have higher needs for medical things,
So if you're contributing
etc.
to your pension, the state is happy.
Well, yeah.
Because you're lessening their burden.
The ideal thing is exactly that you have older people who can provide for themselves and don't necessarily have to turn to the state, which means that they can afford private health insurance later in life, that they can afford, you know, to say get home care rather than demanding the state pay for it. So there is a big advantage to having older people financially self-sufficient. As well as that, at the moment, there's 5 people working for every pensioner. In just over 20 years' time, there's only going to be about 2, maybe 3. Now, what does that say? That means that for people in 20 or 30 years' time, a huge amount of whatever they pay in tax, it's not going to go to them. It's not going to go to education or health or anything else. It's basically a transfer instantly from young people to old people. Now, I'll be one of those old people at that time, and so I hope the young people work hard for me. But it would be far better if I actually just provided for myself now. And there is a big pension time bomb ticking. That's the bad news. The good news is that it's not too late to do something about it. So the answer is, you know, don't rely on the state, rely on yourself. And that's probably the best thing you can do.
Okay. I know pensions a few years back were, you know, down the gurgler, but they have bounced back in the last few years, and we encourage people to get involved in them.
Yeah, they go up and down, and that's, you just got to ride the waves. The big thing is, I would say, is get something with very low fees. That's really the key. Don't get ripped off on the way in, or you'll definitely lose on the way out. And there's a thing called a personal retirement savings account. Very low cost. You can take it from job to job, which suits more people nowadays, where you don't have jobs for life. A PRSA, it's a good product, a good contract. You can get a lot of different options with it. That's the one to go for in my book.
Okay, Karl, as ever, thank you so much for your words of wisdom. Now, coming up, the search for a new boy band. We find out how auditions fared, plus what you should do if you're losing your partner to a bromance. Don't go away.